Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. This is going to be another episode on 66 Mustang. So follow me along through the intro and I'll be back. Alright guys, I have got a bunch of parts here to put on the 66. So what do we start with first? Well, I've been working long in the background trying to figure out how I was going to do trunk floor. And what I decided to do was just cut the top off the stock gas tank, flip the top upside down and use it as a trunk floor. That way later, if I decide to put a stock tank back in the car, I can, and not mountain screws will already be there. So we're going to shoot into a time lapse of me cutting this gas tank, and then into a time lapse of me opening the fuel cell, and then I'll be back. Anybody wonder what a original gas tank looks like? Sat in a junkyard for 40 plus years? Yeah. That thing is nasty. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Nasty, nasty, nasty. So what I didn't know was that fuel tank had a bunch of nasty fuel in the bottom of it, and I don't know if you've seen it time lapse, but it run out all in the shop and it now stinks in here horribly. But that's not what this video is about, guys. I'm going to show you this fuel cell they sent. I'm going to show you how to cut the tank up like I did, how to flip it upside down and use it for a trunk floor in an application like this. And I'm sure if you're considering building a race car out of an early Mustang that you probably got the old factory gas tank laying around, and the likelihood of the top of it being rotted out are very low. So that will be our base. So let me flip around and I'll show you exactly where I'm at and what we need to go from here. So this is the fuel cell that they sent me. This is a 15-gallon flavor. It is a very nice little unit. The welds on it are very nice looking. It's powder coated black. And as you see, it arrived without any damage. Just like many other fuel cells like this, it has -10 AN. Feeds, return, and vents in them. And of course has your standard fuel cell cap, and it does have a GM owned sending unit. But they sent me this fuel cell, so make sure you check them out, guys. Support those that support us. So what I need to do, we need to go back here at the back, and I'll show you this gas tank at this current point. I have literally just cut it in half. I ground off any flange that was around through there. I wire brushed this thing off best I could. So what the plan is, we need to get this fuel cell mocked up. I need to figure out where I'm mounting it. We're going to have to cut the tank for the fuel cell sump. And once we get that figured out, we can go from there. Because it is nasty and kind of rusty and funky. So we're going to have to rust treat that old tank top. And that's the reason why I didn't use it. But it will serve as a good trunk floor, and it being ribbed, it is very strong. So let's see if we can get this fuel cell stuck back there. I'll mark some holes. We'll take that panel back out. We'll go from there. Alright, so what I done, I took and I set that fuel cell in there roughly where I wanted it to sit. I marked the ends of the sump where I could easily access it. I marked the margins of the width, which ended up being about a 6 3/8 inch square, both in width and length. So that's the measurements I'm going to start with. And anytime you have a fuel cell like this, you have two options. You can drop it through the floor where the sump sticks out the bottom. You could mount the whole cell through the floor, which would improve trunk space. Or you could mount it above the trunk floor and then run your lines out that way. Me personally, considering if you look at all the major rule books for racing organizations, the rules are a lot more lax if you mount it inside the car with the sump outside. The big thing is you will have to build a sheet metal guard around the bottom of the sump on that fuel cell. So doing it this way, I have a plan, And I will just be making a little small box on the bottom of the gas tank top, which is now our trunk floor. So let me flip it around. I'll show you where I'm at, and I'll show you what I'm going to do, and we'll go on from there. So guys, I roughly marked out a square. It is not straight by any means, but it's roughly 6 3/8, 6 3/8, and 6 3/8. And the reason why you have to do that, your fuel cells right here have a sump that runs up. So the easiest thing you can do is sit this thing down in here, try to figure out where your margins are, go down with a paint pen, and that will be the rear half. And then you're going to measure the length of your sump. You're going to come up here and mark your corners, just like you did here. So that will be the area that we cut out. And that's it. If you wanted to offset your fuel cell to one side or offset to the other or forward or backwards, you could do that also, but then you're going to have to patch up your old fuel filler neck hole. Do it this way. So I'm just going to center the fuel cell. That should give me plenty of room. Let me set it back centered here real quick. And when this thing is mounted, I've still got some upward room here. I've got plenty of room over here. Our battery will go right here. We've got room in between, room over here. We should be okay as far as space goes. The only real unusable space we're going to have is where the fuel cell itself sits. So I like to center my fuel tank in the car, especially in a race car, because that way you kind of got your rearward weight in a central location, and you're not worried about when you have to go back in and scale this car, moving weight around from corner to corner as much as you would if you go through this process now. So now at this point, I need to pull that trunk floor back out. I need to cut out that square, mock up our fuel cell again, and then we can go in there and mark our mounting bolts. So I've got our not so square cut out. And I do need to go back in here and do a little trimming in this area, but this is good enough to see if this will work. This is going to have to come in and out several times. And I figured I might have to do another cut up here, so I didn't get too wild with making it straight. I am going to have to make another cut up here, and that's one will be easy. But now that our fuel cell is sitting down in the car, I can go in here and mark where our bolts are with a paint marker. I can also go under the car and make sure everything fits up. So ideally, after your second mock-up, what you should be at is something like this. I've not drilled my holes yet, but my holes line up. I got my fuel cell here, and it looks like we may have some interference with this rear cross member right here, so I'll probably have to notch it out, just like I did the tank. Once I get that notched out, we'll be ready to drill our holes, and then we can come back in here, pull this cell back out, pull our panel back out, figure out exactly how much of a drop we got to have to cover the bottom of the sump, because to be legal in most racing organizations, the bottom of that sump has to be covered. So let's get to it. And once you have everything trimmed out, I've got my holes drilled. This fuel cell needs to be held down with a 3/8 grade 8 bolt. And as you can see, I got a little wobble here, but when I push down on this, it don't wobble. That's because the top of that gas tank is bent slightly. But what I need to do now, I need to find something heavier and sit on this corner before I bolt this thing down. Sit something like this board over here on the corner. I'm going to go to the bottom. I'm going to measure how much that sump protrudes on the bottom side. And then I know what I'm going to have to do to box in the bottom, which is about 2.5 inches tall at maximum and about 6 inches long. And that's going to be, you know, in kind of a triangle shape or a V shape. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some sheet metal. I've got some flat sheet over here. I'm going to take and cut me out a 6.5 inch long piece. And I'm going to take it and I'm going to take it to the bottom of this fuel cell. Well, not to the bottom of the fuel cell, but to the top of the fuel tank, which would be the bottom of the fuel tank. So you could use a flat piece of sheet metal back here, guys, and bead roll it for some rigidity. I had old junk tank laying around. They're ribbed very well. They're very strong as a single panel. So that's what I'm choosing to do this. And that way when I mount it, like I said, if later I decide I'm going to go get it back to a stock gas tank, I'm not making anything that's irreversible to do so. So what I've done, guys, I took a 9 inch by 9 inch piece of sheet metal, bend it on an angle, so you know it gradually gets deeper and narrower, because the fuel cell's the same way. It's wider on the front of the sump, and as it gets towards the back, it gets narrower. So now that I got all that welded up, I'm going to take and I'm going to mock the fuel cell up one more time to make sure I got clearance around the bottom of that plate I welded in. If not, we really screwed up at this point. But I need to mock it up. We'll see what we got. And I got it mocked up, bolt hole. And we have our protector for our fuel cell. As you can see, it kind of tapers. I compensated for the depth. Kind of hard to see, but it'll work, believe it or not. So now I need to pull this thing out here. Heat it with a flat disc a little bit. We need to treat the rust on the inside of the plate. And then we'll be in a pretty good spot. So it's a little while later. I got this thing rust treated and painted on this side. I went here and just put a couple screws in it to hold it down. But I should also note, with a metallic fuel cell, you shouldn't have to do this. With the plastic fuel cell, you're going to have to run the plate like this. You're going to have to run some 1.5 inch square tube, and it's going to have to bolt your fuel cell straight to it, and it'll have to be strapped on the top and bottom. That's a good thing about an aluminum cell like this. We can bolt it straight to the floor. I added this just because there was no questions to be asked. And as long as we bolt it down with some 3/8 hardened hardware, we shouldn't have no issues. And when you get your fuel cell installed, it'll look something like this. Keep in mind, these are not the correct fasteners and are not what I'm going to use. I just bolted it down to make sure we were mocked up well. So we should be good to go with the fuel cell. So guys, make sure you check out Evil Energy. That's one of their stickers right there. They got all kinds of fuel system components, catch cans, and all kinds of other automotive accessories at very good prices. And like I said, there'll be a link to this fuel cell down below and a discount code. So guys, this is going to be a little shorter video than usual. I just wanted to show you the product that they sent me, and that it's greatly appreciated that they did. So make sure you check them out if you need any kind of fuel system stuff, AN lines, fittings, fuel cells, like I said, catch cans, breather cans, overflow cans, all that stuff. They sell it.